Guys, this is Nick. In the name of the FC Schalke Mafia team, I want to congratulate you on your 100th episode. Thanks for supporting us in the US, and hopefully there will be many more episodes of your podcast in the future. Glück auf!
Ball still in play. Oh, what a goal! What a magnificent, absolutely stupendous strike from Kevin Kharman. Moravec through to Raul. Lovely chip by Raul. 4-1 Schalke.
Blau und weiß sein Leben lang. Hallo meine Leute, willkommen zum Das Einzige Schalke Podcast auf Englisch. That's right folks, officially the world's only English Schalke podcast worldwide. This is episode 106 of SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Kharman. Joining me on the show, as always, is co-host Jack Mangan. Jack, how are we doing, man?
That was a clean intro. No,
It took a while. It took a while.
Yeah,
I finally got the coronavirus rust off of me.
Yeah. How was your Thanksgiving holiday, man?
It was good. It was good overall. Yeah. Got to relax. Got to spend time at home just with my wife and my son. And no, it was good. Watched a lot of soccer. So can't complain. How about you?
What are the holidays for?
That's right.
Boxing Day's coming up. Looking forward to that as usual.
That's right.
I haven't even checked the schedule. Do we have Boxing Day games this year?
I'm
Maybe not.
sure.
I don't know.
I mean, that's a good question. How was your
My
holiday?
holiday was good. It was weird. As you know, I've been up in Wisconsin with my brother, so it was a little bit of a slightly more isolated, disjointed holiday. But I'm sure many are feeling that way. With maybe a lot of people not traveling as much for COVID reasons and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it was nice. It was nice, and definitely a year that makes you think on what it is that you appreciate in your life and be thankful for more of it. So
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better. We're gonna go ahead and this is a lot to talk about this week. We need to bring some help on here because obviously there's a lot to talk about with Schalke, but there's also a lot to talk about with the game. And so we're gonna bring on a guest here. Let me pop him in here. His name is Daniel McDermott. He is a Gladbach tactics blogger. Excuse me. It's called Die Fohlen Analysis. Make sure you check it out. Welcome to the show, Daniel McDermott. How you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you guys doing? Thanks for bringing me on.
Doing well, man. Hey, we want to apologize. It's because you're a Gladbach fan that the camera's not working. So our services, it's just, I don't know what to tell you, man.
That's fair.
there is one other thing I wanted to mention while I have the opportunity, which is that before me there are two gentlemen, one of which I have been doing a podcast with for 3 years now, as of about a couple days ago. 3-year anniversary of when I joined, right?
Yep.
I have met Daniel McDermott. I have not met Richard Kharman still to this day.
Hey, whose fault is that?
Time. Probably my fault.
Both of our faults.
Yeah. But I just thought that was funny because Daniel and I had the occasion to meet right before COVID kind of started getting crazy. I think it was back in February. But Richard and I 3 years in, still.
I can one up you. My co-host on my other podcast, we've been knowing each other for 10 years. We're doing podcasts for 5 years. I've never met him.
Oh, so it's definitely your fault then.
It is almost my fault. I am the culprit here. So.
The common denominator is Richard for sure.
It is no doubt about it. Hey, we got some guys in the chat room here. Paul Forrester, how you doing, buddy? We'll get to your question there. Thank you for that question. Dylan, Bill, before we get to this, before we get to the nitty-gritty of everything, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about the Tactics blog and what's that all about? Tell us a little bit more about Gladbach here.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Tactics blog, which is a little bit on a hiatus right now, just because of schoolwork and things like that, but hopefully I'll be having some pieces out over the winter break. But yeah, it's kind of inspired by, ironically, Renee Marich's Tactics blog. Of course, then he ended up joining the staff at Gladbach, which I was super excited to see. And yeah, just kind of giving a little bit of an insight into the team and the tactics of Gladbach in English, kind of building the fan base and supporter base for Gladbach, which, despite its history and especially in the last few years, them doing really well, they're still kind of, at least for American support, kind of outside the definitely Munich and Hertha Berlin and Dortmund and such. So yeah, I followed Gladbach since 2009, 2010. Nice. Casey Keller being goalkeeper there is kind of what drew me. And yeah, I've been a diehard fan ever since.
Oh, that's awesome. So your team has been It's been one of the obviously powerhouses of German football for a long time, but in particular the last couple seasons, and we'll even get about this season, is that you guys have had you got to an amazing start off last season, right? The first half of the season you were top of the table, You ran into the juggernaut that was Schalke, and then you destroyed our career. But that's beside the point. You guys have a pretty good team. You got one of our old guys, Mbolo, on your team, but you have a lot of talent. You have a very talented manager that we wanted for sure, Marco Rose. Tell us about what he's done since he's joined you guys that really is excited you, and have you hopeful that maybe you guys can push not only the top 3 but maybe even higher with Gladbach.
I know what he's going to say. He's going to say Brel and Bolo at the number 10 position. What everyone was
naturally.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely used Mbolo in a very interesting way. I'm not too familiar with how he played for Schalke, aside from his injuries and kind of, I guess, famous streak of not really scoring much. But yeah, the transition from, letting go of Dieter Hecking and bringing Marco Rose was really a bold decision from the get-go. I mean, Hecking had his shortcomings, especially in his tactics and his style being very possession-based, boring, making, let's pass 20 times between our center backs before we move the ball forward. But he's still got us in the Europa League, in contending for those top spots. But yeah, Marco Rose was able to come in and completely revamp a team that, again, wasn't really struggling or anything like that, but get them to believe in his system of, what we kind of call Red Bull football, high pressing, quick transitions, and kind of still do in a way that is different than you see in like Leipzig or even Salzburg, where, it's not like, all right, get the ball, press, very direct. There's a little bit of his own style there, adapting to the players that he has, incorporating people like Mbolo and kind of that 10 position that's like a target man, but not leading the front line. Lars Snindels also kind of played that position. So it's been a really unique style, I would say, this season, and it's really been interesting because last season, a lot of the success has been, versatility. We can play, diamond. You can play five in the back, 3-man chain, adapting to each system. And the entire offseason, Rosa was saying, this year we're going to be even more versatile. But they've only played one formation, one system.
4-2-3-1?
Yep, exactly. And every time the lineup comes out, Gladbach fans are like, oh, we playing a back 3, or we playing a diamond. No, we've been consistent the entire season, which is pretty ironic. But yeah, and going into this season, kind of been up and down. League performance probably been hindered a little bit by our success in the Champions League, which we were just recovering off of today. I mean, last minute giving up goals to Inter, we could have easily secured ourselves in the knockout stage of the Champions League for the first time. But yeah, I think just that kind of energy, willing to attack, press, quick transitions is really what Rosa's brought to the Gladbach side. And I think there are probably a few players keeping hold of like Thuram, Zakaria, and maybe 1 or 2 other investments away from probably maybe being a top 4 challenger year in and year out.
So what's the sort of feeling amongst Gladbach supporters at the moment in terms of, I feel like you guys are at a point where you have aspirations to consistently try to qualify for Champions League football now, even if you aren't quite at that Bayern or Dortmund level in terms of, club status and notoriety at this point. But at the same time, despite being like 7th in the table, which is maybe a little bit lower than where you want to be, you are topping a group with Real Madrid, Shakhtar, and Inter Milan, which is fairly impressive. So, I mean, like, how are supporters viewing this? Are they still looking fairly positively, or are there some concerns about the Bundesliga performances?
I think they're definitely enjoying the Champions League success, and often a lot of times, anytime you play Gladbach, what's the first thing the commentator mentions is the historic European Championship success they had in the 70s. And so a lot of fans kind of identify with, the club's doing well in Europe again. But interestingly, I wrote a brief piece for Get German Football News at the beginning of the season saying that Gladbach should actually focus on the Bundesliga, because I didn't think that they really had the depth to compete on both fronts, especially with the congested schedule, as we'll see going kind of towards the winter break. Is the fixtures come quick, and of course I was completely called an idiot for why they would want to try to lose Champions League games, which I didn't exactly advocate for, but rather making sure the best starting 11 was fresh.
Twisting your words.
Yeah. Making sure the best 11 is there for the Bundesliga, which they've done a decent job of balancing out the starting 11. Of course, COVID restrictions, keeping people out of the lineup is always unpredictable and tough. But I think the mood is they're enjoying the Champions League success right now, hoping they can get to the knockout stages there as far as they can. And hopefully, the Bundesliga results will come after they're out of that competition.
Well, nothing like Schalke on the fixture list to potentially turn around your Bundesliga fortunes. Maybe that'll be the start of a little run for you guys. Who knows?
Yeah. It's funny because it's about time really for you guys having some success in Champions League. I know over the years that Gladbach has qualified for it. I've always been, people ask me, how are the Bundesliga clubs going to do? And I always pushing the flag for Gladbach. I'm like, this is a good team. You should watch out for them. And then they always seem to throw up an egg in Champions League. But this year, I'm glad. This year they surprised a lot of people. I mean, obviously they're topping the group at the moment, playing very well in Europe, more so than they are in Germany. What do you attribute to the good play? Because like Jack said, it's a very tough group. You got Inter Milan, who is going to be challenging for the Scudetto in Italy. Real Madrid is going to be challenging for the title in La Liga. Shakhtar is one of the best Ukrainian teams around. So what do you attribute the success you guys are having in Europe this season?
I think definitely part of it is a lot of these players who are kind of on the cusp of breaking through, like Florian Neuhaus, Thuram, all these players that are kind of playing their first Champions League games. That's kind of where their career aspirations want to be. So I think for a lot of them, they're just getting up for more of those games more so than maybe the Bundesliga games. Definitely been helped in terms of Real Madrid game. Real Madrid having a shaky season, in addition to just very good tactically planned game by Rosa and his staff, which, I mean, to a certain extent too, I think Rosa and Rene Maric, I think they're just better adapt to kind of the Champions League, Europa League competitions. I mean, how they first got their start by taking the Salzburg's youth team all the way to the youth Champions League and winning it. I think they're just built for being able to take an opponent that they're going to play once and adapting to them and finding their weaknesses and taking advantage of those. So to a certain extent, I think it's just the coaching staff has really good tactical plans for the matches. And players are definitely getting up for it a little bit more, being back in the Champions League for the first time in some time. And a lot of these players, it's their chance to kind of showcase their skills to maybe some bigger Premier League teams or Bayern Munich or such to show what they have. So I think it's a little bit mixed of those two.
Just so you know, we don't recognize the existence of Salzburg prior to Jesse Marsch being the manager.
True
as
story.
Americans here, so
It was just
That's
a city
fair.
in a movie, right?
So my question for you then, pivoting to Schalke for a second, would just be, I mean, what can you say at this point? But what is the general opinion in your mind from an outsider's perspective of what's occurring at the club at the moment and the performances?
I mean, it's just the breaking point really was when they got rid of David Wagner. And, for a team that's struggling and has a really poor start to the season, that's always kind of like the make or break moment where, is your club leadership really going to take the reins, provide structure, get a new coach in, set out a clear path that they're going to support completely, or are they not? And they're going to kind of fall at the heels of the many obstacles that come along and let locker room atmosphere kind of take down the club. And so from the outside, I think you're seeing a little bit of that, especially within the week prior leading up to the Gladbach game, kind of the locker room turmoil and the higher up turmoil as well. It's kind of showing that the foundation, it's cracking a little bit, that whoever comes in the long term, next season, even now, isn't going to be well supported, that someone needs to be to take in a job like that.
And we agree about that. All that with everything that has been going on this last week, at least for with Schalke, has just seemed to hit a boiling point. We're going to talk about this later because this is a very dark subject we need to talk about. Really deep. It's a therapy session for us. But from an outsider's perspective, what do you make of the last week of all the news that Schalke has been in? Not only with Schalke, but even the commentators making questions, comments, and this and that. What is the last 7 days? What have you seen from the outside?
It's basically, I think there's two camps. There's one camp that thinks Schalke is a staple of the Bundesliga, and out of that respect, really, really are hoping that they can pull it around. And maybe more so, that means they're rooting against Cologne and Bielefeld, so Schalke is a little bit closer to them in the table. And then I think there's another camp that see it and say, all right, time for you to go down to the Zwei Bundesliga where you can dodge it out with Hamburg and really teach, I guess, your club a lesson about how to run a club. Just name isn't good enough to stay in the Bundesliga. You need to have that structure there, and not some selfish leadership up top making all decisions.
Diplomatic from Daniel there to not tell us which camp into, which we won't push you on anymore. But
I flip flop, I'll say.
Very good. Well, I guess we should get into the game, huh? It was an interesting game, no doubt about it. Well, let's look at the lineups first real quick. Let me pull up the lineups here. Starting with your club, Daniel. In goal, obviously, Jan Sommer, a fantastic goalie. People always ask me, especially outsiders from the Bundesliga, ask me, "Oh, what do you think about Jan Sommer?" And I'm always singing his praises. To me, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the league. But then he had a back four of Lazaro, Ginter, Janschke, and Wendt. Then you had a midfield of Zakaria, Neuhaus, Herman, Embolo, and Thuram, led by Plié up top. When you saw this lineup, is it fairly standard lineup for you guys, or is there something that a person maybe or two that you were hoping to see in this game?
Based off of the rotation that they were kind of going through, preparing for the Champions League game, it's kind of expected a fair amount of rotation. Again, they've been doing kind of going with a stronger 11 in the Champions League, rotating one or two aside for the Bundesliga, probably more so against Schalke, maybe, thinking that you wouldn't have to have a strongest 11 to get by them. I think the biggest shocker was probably the first time that they rested one of the center backs. So Nico Elvedi not starting was maybe a surprise, and Tony Xhaka coming in, which is a little bit of a surprise, but also, especially for longtime Gladbach fans, was nice to see Tony's, whose nickname is Football God, amongst Gladbach fans come in and do a job and show that despite his age, despite him taking more of a backseat role in the club, he can still come in and put in a shift.
How happy were you to see Zakaria in the lineup as well? That's his first time he's been in the lineup in a while, right? Back from injury, I think?
Yep. He had, I forget the specifics of the injury, but he was out for probably since last April, March, maybe even a little bit longer. Wow. I believe the Champions League game was the Bayer Leverkusen game. Prior, he came in the last 5 minutes. So it was kind of a little bit of was he going to come in late against Schalke again and then start the Champions League game, or vice versa? And so he started against Schalke, and today against Inter he came on at halftime but didn't start. But it was really nice, put in a good shift. You can tell he was a little bit rusty throughout the game, but he definitely displayed his biggest advantages: his speed, his stamina, his ability to put in a good tackle, which I think he did well.
Good team to come back and check your rust off, is from Schalke, right? Jack, looking at our lineup, we came out with I guess a 4-2-3-1, or however you want to label it. Renov in goal, as always. Back four of Ludwig, Kabak, Nastasic, Tiao. Midfield 5 of Mascarell, Serdar, Skripski, Ut, and Rahman. And then led up top by Matthew Hopp.
And that's really where we have to start, isn't it? Hashtag the happening.
The happening.
Got underway. Maybe not quite the start that we would have hoped for in terms of the result overall, and then also lack of goal involvement from the young man. But we saw him. He tweeted out something. I think it might have been the night before, whatever, where he was like, all glory to God, thanks for mom and dad. And I was like, is that? I mean, that seems like he's about to get some minutes tomorrow. Like let's find out. And that's ultimately what happened. I believe it was Ahmed Katuchu was the positive COVID test in the team, so he was unavailable. Gonzalo Paciencia as well, picking up a knock, just had surgery back in Portugal. Have we seen how long that's gonna?
I've heard a couple of reports. I heard one report that he's done for the year, and I heard another one is just a long term. So I don't know. He had something on Instagram, I think, or Twitter, and it didn't look very good. So I'm not sure yet, but it could be bad.
I mean, either way, it's a huge hit because he's one of the guys that we brought in to help try to fix this issue, and the lack of depth that we have at that position. So to lose him already is unfortunate, but that's why it's a good thing that we have the Knappenschmiede, and all of the talent that it produces, because it allows us to rely on that maybe to a slightly greater extent than some clubs are capable of. Doesn't mean that these guys are going to come in and immediately be superstars, but there is some talent there. So that was the big thing for me. The other interesting thing was you saw when they announced the team sheet, Malikcha, Nasic, Kabak. So you're thinking maybe back three, but then you look at who else is on the field, and it didn't present that way. So one of the talking points that you and I had after the Wolfsburg game, right, was we know that Manuel Baum has been trying to make this sort of like back three happen, but we didn't think it was a good idea to continue that if it was going to be Stambouli sliding in, right? So this time he actually does switch to a back four and just plays Malik Chow at left back, which I think was pretty surprising. There's a lot of people that have been calling for Hamza Mendil to get some appearances. Yeah. So we didn't see Ochipka, and I thought maybe that was going to be the opportunity. Kind of strange that we didn't see that then. I don't know if he's hurt or what the deal is there, but having your young center back shift over to left back, I think demonstrates a lot of faith in him, and maybe not so much in some other people. What were your thoughts overall?
Yeah, it was a nice move to see Thiaw. I thought, with Thiaw and Nastasic both out there, I thought maybe Thiaw would be in the middle, and Nastasic, who's played left back before, would have slotted out there. But they made that switch, and Thiaw, I thought, did pretty good for himself overall. And then also seeing Matthew Hopp out there and Skripski in the lineup, which we thought maybe would happen, because he's been one of the few bright spots for Schalke coming off the bench in this season so far. So I wasn't too surprised about that. I was obviously happy to see Ut and Rahman up top. We weren't sure what kind of lineup we would see with all the injuries. We know we had a lot of Knappenschmiede on the bench as well, people that could have called up, and another one gets into the game, Jan-Lukas Schuler, a little bit later. We'll talk about that, but. I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't sure how we were going to come out in this game. It was, you never know. It's either we're going to come out. We talked about this last week, how it could have been poetic justice, where our whole losing streak started when the win against Gladbach, and maybe we could wrap it up with a win against them, or it would just continue the way things have always been. That's what we weren't sure of. But what we saw early on in the game was a good back and forth, I thought. In the 15th minute, goal scoring would start. Ozan Kabak, his name's going to come up a lot in this game. I wasn't too happy with his performance, but he gives it away. Plie ends up giving it to Embolo. Embolo's shot gets saved by Runov. Unfortunately, the pass goes past everybody, goes right to Neuhaus. Neuhaus scores from distance. 1-0, just like that. Daniel, you guys were on the back foot really for the first 15 minutes, and you guys finally get a counterattack, and you were deadly on it, and you put it away. How happy were you to see that, considering how the pace of the game was going at that point?
Very relieved. And kind of, I guess, the optics of the goal of Neuhaus shooting the balls through the legs of maybe 2 or 3 Schalke players was a little bit symbolic of Schalke's season, especially considering this game that they played extremely well in. And yeah, we were looking very nervous. Bomb League Schalke were being outplayed, outpossessed. But that's kind of maybe the success that Gladbach has had in the Champions League, is they are very good on the counter, and it was kind of ironic to let a team in the Bomb League to let them really counterattack, and that opened up the game really well. But yeah, it was definitely a sigh of relief to finally get the goal scoring starting, considering how well Schalke were playing.
Were you surprised by that? When you were coming into this one, I would assume that you would think that you guys are naturally going to get the win, and you did. But 15 minutes in this game before you score your first goal, what was going through your head at that point watching this?
That Schalke were gonna complete the loop of their losing streak. Losing streak started after Gladbach, and now is coming full circle. Leading up to the game, I think I made a comment that it was gonna be the which force was gonna be bigger: Schalke's inability to score and win, or Gladbach's inability to keep a clean sheet, because they throughout the season they've been comically letting up a goal in the last 10 minutes every single match. And so when I saw that, I was like, wow, it looks like it's going to be our inability to keep a clean sheet.
Richard, there is one other thing I wanted to say about this goal. You mentioned Kabak, but one of the themes for me in this game, again, was actually Nastasic as well. And I talked about this, I think, last podcast, where I feel like far too often, Ceane does this sometimes too, but Nastasic just isn't involved in the scoring plays. And to some extent, I'm sure he could walk you through what he's doing and why, like from an academic standpoint, like that's the right position to be in or whatever. But far too often these goals are going in, and if you look at what Nasic is doing on these plays, it's virtually nothing. And when you're a center back and your job is to defend, at some point you need to actually like defend and be involved in these. And the only reason this counterattack starts with play is because Nasic is keeping him on. Everyone else, the line is farther up. He keeps him on. And then if you watch him, he just sort of like jogs back at the middle of the box, doesn't try to put a body on somebody, isn't clearly marking anybody. And ultimately this goal goes in with him just kind of like standing around, and you look at his involvement over 10 seconds and there wasn't any. And I think this happened potentially a couple times in this game. So something else to keep an eye on. I know especially as a defender, you have to be able to trust your teammates, and so that you can kind of stay where you're supposed to be for the structural integrity of what's happening, and rely on your teammates to do their job. But at some point, I think you need to step out of that and just try to make something happen to stop some of these goals from going in.
Yeah, and I think we saw a theme, certainly with the two center backs in this game, how they didn't really perform to where we expect them to perform. Struggling or not, they have to perform a lot better. Ludovic didn't help his cause as well, but we'll get into it later. I mean, of the back four, Thiaw was probably the best by a country mile, really. But yeah, it was this Nastasic and Kabak, really. Kabak overcommitting on that play, forcing a turnover. And then Nastasic, like you said, just staying around, not really doing anything, and allowing the – I mean, yeah, I get the rebound comes out really quick and you don't have time to react maybe, but could have done a lot more in that play leading up to it. And then it seemed like to go through like a million guys' legs at that point to go in the goal too. It was like when I saw that go in, I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of those games where every bounce is going to go against us. It's very disheartening to see. Daniel, you talked about how – at that point you were just, hoping to catch us on the counter and stuff like that. And you guys really have the horses to do that. You guys got pace up top pretty much all your attackers have pretty good pace compared to Schalke. Schalke cannot play that counter game. There's basically no pace up top. I mean, Rahman maybe is the quickest guy in that starting lineup, and he's okay. But you guys, got Plie and Thuram and obviously Mbolo's a quick guy as well. And then Newhouse eventually just comes up and cleans up shop at the end. But you guys looked as good as Schalke was looking early on. You guys still seem kind of comfortable, and like whenever those opportunities came, you did counter very quickly, and that's what's worrying me. And then that goal goes in, and like you said, it was relief for you. Did you think at that point when you guys scored that you guys were gonna just go off and keep scoring more goals?
Yeah, because at that point I figured Schalke were playing so well that they were probably in a comfortable position where they were going to keep attacking. And at that point, if Gladbach decided that's what they were going to play, counterattacking football, then that was just going to play right into their hands. And so that's why I immediately was thinking all we have to do is stay solid in the back, not lap any goals, play counterattacking, and I think we can see up this game. And so then 5 minutes later, we conceded and Schalke scored. Then it was kind of the next goal was really going to – I mean, I know it's a cliche, but the next goal was really going to be deciding the outcome of the game. If Schalke scored and were able to maybe hold on to the lead, Gladbach would have to come out of that counterattacking shape. But if Gladbach scored, then they'd be right back into that mentality of just keeping on coming back and waiting for that opportunity to break forward.
We always say whenever a team gets scored on, how do they react? Jack, we were wondering, what Schalke had played so up to that point. Would they, be angry and try to come back and get a goal, or would they sit back and just let Gladbach take over from there? Schalke continued to press on, but fortunately for us, as we caused a turnover to lead to their goal, a turnover by Thuram goes right to Mark Uth. Mark Uth was done spectacular by holding up the ball, perfectly timed chip lobby pass, whatever you want to call it, right in the white for a streaking Rahman, and he brilliantly volleys at top corner, makes it 1-1 in the 20th minute. At that point, I'm thinking, where was this come from? This is what we've been looking for the longest time. Not only did we get a goal finally, but a pretty goal at that.
Yeah, ultimately the service and the finish were both quite nice. Yeah, Mark Uth with a pretty well weighted chip over the back line. I think Ginter gets caught ball watching a little bit, and Benito Raman's able to make this like 50-yard dash or whatever it is, kind of to get in off the back shoulder to sneak in there. And I don't think Lazaro was maybe tracking him, but wasn't able to get back in time either. Shout out to Mark Uth as well, who has been fantastic and pops up in a lot of different areas of the pitch, which I think at times we've in the past have somewhat been critical of, but definitely seems like it's much more within a defined system at this time, and he's also just putting in the work. I mean,
this season he's one of our better ones outside of Renov, I think.
Yeah, 100%. So he deserves a shout out for that, and also to come up with the interception. One thing I thought was interesting on this goal was just that it seemed that a lot of times when you have when Schalke plays with two up top, it's a lot about pressure on the center backs, particularly the ball carrying center backs, and there's a lot of like running around. It seemed as though early in this match we weren't concerned about that so much as we were about denying ball to Dennis Zakaria and also Florian Neuhaus, and Zakaria in particular. I mean, you saw Matthew Hoppe, like he was very concerned about his cover shadow, and was doing a lot of shoulder checking, that sort of thing. So I thought it was interesting that this goal actually took place in one of the rare occasions early in the match where Zakaria dropped into the back line to help play balls, but then the person who received it ends up playing a bad pass back to him, which is just kind of funny to me. But Daniel, how often is Zakaria actually doing that and occupying a position between the center backs? Is that something that happens fairly frequently in possession, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. He's really, I think his two biggest strengths, one, dribbling at defenders, which at some points he may do a little bit too often, but two, kind of his ability to find space is really one of his strengths. Either occupying that position between the center backs, in between the center back and the full back, or staying way out wide. He definitely changes that up throughout the game, which makes it even more difficult. Opponents, defenders aren't really sure exactly where he's going to be staying throughout the game. So yeah, that was definitely very common. I'm also not a little surprised when he played that back pass. I think some of the body language he displays in games is a little bit of that kind of, relax, don't let the defender get onto you that you're about to make a run forward or burst into space or something like that. But sometimes his body language can be a little bit laid back. Usually results a little bit into a poor first touch, a little bit of a lazy, what they call a hospital ball, where you kind of played it back to the defenders. The space that he occupies usually in between that is usually standard, very flexible throughout the game.
So it's funny because up to that point, Schalke were actually doing quite well offensively, creating a lot of opportunities, but leave it to a turnover for them to actually get their first goal. When that goal went in 1-1, are you thinking, maybe this is going to be a tougher game than we expected, or are you still fairly confident that you guys could eke out a result based on who your opponents were?
I think it was, as I was a little bit saying before, I think it was a little bit more worrisome, probably to the same point of worrisome at the beginning of the game, because I thought that goal definitely would have sparked something in Schalke that, especially the beauty of the goal and especially Mark Uth's ability to pass it down to Rahman. I thought that was going to be a spark for Schalke, and I could have easily seen them scoring another. That's why I really thought it was important. Whoever was going to score the next goal was really going to have the momentum of the game. There was definitely a lot of worry. Especially, I totally could have seen the game staying 1-1 until about 5 minutes to go, and Gladbach just giving up another goal in the last 10 minutes.
You just mentioned about spark and getting up for the play, and I think a good reason, Jack, we should have mentioned this before the game started, or before we started talking about the game. A good reason, or a big reason why Schalke are probably still up for this game is there was a big push from the Schalke fans. We talked about all this negativity had been going on prior to the game. Came out with the hashtag Gemeinsam, which is together. And what it was, the Schalke fans from all over, all our brethren, a lot of our friends on Twitter, put together, really, really short clips, compiled into one big video. Funky Hunter and I think our buddy Maj, they put a video together, and it was this whole, I don't know how long it was. It's a collection of all Schalke fans everywhere, just giving positivity to the team, wishing them good luck, hoping giving them some confidence, and that caught traction. Schalke caught wind of that, and they played this video for Schalke prior to the game. And I think that helped in the reason why they played so well early on in the game. Jacko, what do you think about that?
Maybe. I mean, you'd hope so. We talked a lot about the psychology being, one of the biggest issues, and also potentially one of the motivating factors for some of the suspensions that we've seen in the past week as well. It's really about trying to, limit the squad down to who we think is really committed. That's what we've talked about, not being surprised with Benito Rahman, Stefan Skripski, getting in the lineup, players that maybe you wouldn't look at and say, those are our most talented guys, but definitely people that are going to put in the shift and work within the system and try to make things happen. To the extent that video helped, I think that's great. I think Manuel Baum deserves a little bit of credit as well for having a decent game plan. And I mean, if anything, I mean, it was nice to see Schalke respond after going down, because I mean, when you start a game that positively, right, and then you're have the better of the play, and then Gladbach just score, that would be a moment where we'd see this team collapse. And ultimately, we did lose 4-1, but we responded within a couple minutes and scored again, and then closed out. It wasn't until like kind of the end of the first half where suddenly it started getting worrying how much width Gladbach was getting and the balls they were playing and that sort of thing. But shout out to all the people that put that together. And I think that's cool that they showed it to the team, and hopefully, the players are aware that we're rooting for them,
And I'm glad we started seeing some positivity too, because we've been trying to be as positive as possible on this podcast with how things are going. We've been one of the most positive people, I think, in the community. So it's good to see the whole team, the whole family get together and really put video out and really say, look, we can do this. Come on, just keep going, keep thinking positive. And it was great to see that, and great to see the team react to it, at least initially. Daniel, I thought, well, I don't know if you thought, but I thought things were going to start going in our favor. 27th minute, Schalke kept putting pressure on you guys, and we got a free kick in a good position. And Mark Uth, he had his name written all over it. He takes a free kick. He misses just wide, hits off the post. But I'm sure you were probably terrified seeing Uth step up to that kind of play and just missing a chance, for your team to go down 2-1.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very thankful for the goalpost when it ricocheted off of it and went wide. And I know a lot of Gladbach fans too were especially a little critical of Jan Sommer. There's been kind of an ongoing joke that he kind of looks like he just hit a home run sometimes in those close goals, where he just is just completely studded. He doesn't even dive for his close. And it actually just happened again today against Inter Milan. I think it was Lukaku had a shot that hit the post, and Jan Sommer knows it's close enough, but doesn't even bother diving. And so kind of when he saw that star-studded stop and we see it going very close, my heart definitely sank a little bit, for sure.
Jack,
you have to respect that, though. That is pretty badass to just like, I know where the limits of my area are. I'm not interested in that one because it's too far wide.
As long as it stays out, he looks good. But when it goes in, you're like, okay, you're an idiot. Well, you guys, as much as we thought we were having a chance to get away with a lead in this one, leave it to you guys on the counterattack. Talking about overcommitting earlier, Ludwig on this one overcommits. Newhouse ends up finding a vent on the left hand side, and he scores low on Renov, scoring on the counterattack, just like Gerd saying, 2-1, just like that. And Jack, you had been worried at that point when you saw that goal go in, because it went in a little too easily, I thought.
Yeah, and Kylian Ludwig's side of the field has been a problem in that respect for much of the season. And once again, I don't want to be overly critical of this kid because
he's young. He's 19 or something.
He's young. He was playing in Barnsley previously. The only reason he's here is because Schalke have no money, and Manuel Baum knows this guy from his experience with the U23. So I don't want to be critical. I think he's getting great experience, and hopefully it serves him well in his career. But he pushes up to try to stop that. Skripski doesn't respond quickly enough and is not aware of that run happening off of his shoulder. The interesting thing that happens is actually Ludwig looks like he checks the run and then sees Skripski there, and then Ludwig does not like try to sprint and cover that. He just kind of keeps jogging, and Skripski doesn't sprint either. So like neither of them actually try to track that. I don't know if they were just gassed or what the deal was, but it almost looked like Ludwig like thought his teammate was covering it and then like turned back to the other. I mean, it's too easy. And then once again, if you watch Nasic on this play, he's not doing anything. He's just jogging around in space. He just has, I mean, maybe we need like seven of him on the pitch and just put him in the box, because no one is allowed anywhere within his like realm of influence. So they wouldn't even be allowed to get into the box at some point. The way that's working. But it was heart definitely sank when that one went in, because once again, it's a little bit too easy. And then also, that it's going to be it's a long road back for this team anytime we go down against any opponent. I was very impressed that we were able to do it once. Didn't find it super likely that we're going to be able to do it twice. And then as the score, goes up, that becomes more and more of a problem. So,
yeah, Daniel, your man Newhouse is having a heck of a game at that point. A goal and an assist, a nice assist to Vent. Vent had it was a decent goal, but I think the pass to really spring him was better. Renault probably could have done a little bit better on the shot stop there. But how impressed are you with Newhouse so far this season, and in particular this game?
Yeah, Noah Hales, I think he's definitely so far in the season been player of the season so far for Gladbach. Definitely breaking through, getting called up for Germany national team. Just redefine. I think last season, especially under Dieter Hacking, when he first played for the first team, was playing a little bit more of an advanced playmaker role, and now he's kind of being switched into a deeper lying role, and much better. There's a lot more comfortable coming deep for the ball. Really good first touch to find himself space, and yeah, just like those passes to Vent on the second goal. Just his ability to pick out those little holes and spaces in between defenses and get the ball through to, again, kind of our fast men up front. Makes him really lethal. And so I'm hoping that he sticks around a little bit longer on the long term for Gladbach, because I can definitely see him being someone that either Munich or Dortmund snap up. But I think Jack actually hit it on the head a little bit earlier when he was talking about the width that Schalke was giving Gladbach, and definitely moving forward kind of after Schalke scored. I think maybe Schalke was getting a little bit too excited and pushing up on those wide areas a little forward, because I think there was maybe just a little bit before that goal or after that goal. There's another chance down the wing for Thuram, where just acres of space on the wide area. So yeah, people talking about positivity, and even though Ludwig was probably the one overcommitting a little bit, I will actually give him some props. There were a couple of times where he's going 1-1 against Thuram, and he stopped him dead in his tracks. He was able to force him on the outside, and Thuram had nowhere to go. And I think twice it went out for a throw-in for Schalke, and one was a corner. So for someone 19, as you guys were mentioning, not too much experience, he did well against Thuram for sure.
For sure, and he definitely puts a shift in, and that's what I'm saying is like he's only here like because we're desperate. Not to insult like what his potential future prospects are. He's not good enough to play in the Bundesliga at some point or a league like that. But I mean, this is not somebody that Schalke had targeted and specifically brought in to replace Daniel Caligiuri or somebody like that. This is just kind of like a putting a band-aid on an issue. So I hate going after him specifically, because clearly there's a lot of issues in this team, and not just a kid who's out there trying his best for a short-term period of time.
Yeah. And, Daniel mentioned how the opportunities were starting to create itself with the width and everything. And that goal seemed to kind of open the floodgates, really. If it hadn't been broken before, just a few minutes later, you guys, and you guys, I mean Gladbach, they had a corner kick. Thuram hits the post off the crossbar with a header. And then Jenschke misses a great opportunity to make it 3-1 at that point. But a lot of opportunities for you guys at Gladbach. And luckily for us, I guess we escaped with a 2-1 deficit going into halftime. At that point, Daniel, like you mentioned, it just seemed like the floodgates were open, and you guys are starting to create opportunity after opportunity, really using that width. But you saw the big boys really starting to get their chances in this game.
Yeah, for sure. And I knew unless something drastic happened kind of halftime, I was hoping for Gladbach to maybe get a third one before halftime to get that little bit of buffer. But I knew kind of halftime, unless something dramatically changed for Schalke or Gladbach decided to come out and play it too safe, that hopefully that would continue. We'd be able to grab one or two more. And again, it's kind of like we were saying in the beginning. I mean, Schalke were committing people forward. They were trying to continue kind of the possession and attacking threats that they had at the very beginning of the game, and that was just unfortunately falling perfectly into the hands of Gladbach, who were completely prepared to sit back and just get all the counterattacks they could, especially using the width again kind of in the second half. So yeah, I was hoping for a third one before half, but yeah, I knew that it'd probably continue in the second half the way it was looking.
Well, you didn't get one before halftime, but you did get one just after the break in the 52nd minute. A nice free kick. It kind of looked like a set play. And the free kick, I should say, ends up going to Herman out left. He hits it back in the middle. Plie, his shot gets saved, but Thuram is there to wipe up the rebound top of the net. 3-1 at that point, and it looked like the game was over. It seemed like a set play, Daniel. Is that something you've seen before from Gladbach off free kicks?
Interestingly, not under Marco Rosa, and that's kind of what the Gladbach fans kind of criticized him for. Under Dieter Hecking, I think Hecking's assistant coach was huge on drawing up these really great set plays. And I want to say Alisson Playa in his first season in the Bundesliga probably scored like 3 or 4 off of these well-crafted kind of trick plays. And that was kind of thrown completely out the door last year under Rose's first season, but I've seen it maybe once or twice. They're not every time, but once in a while they'll try to throw in a little clear set piece planned there.
This is the trade-off you make, though. I mean, if you want that versatility in terms of your system, you don't get the set plays anymore. I mean, now you get the set plays, the creative stuff, but you're going to that 4-2-3-1 consistent. Can't do both at the same time.
Yeah, only 24 hours in a day, unfortunately.
Yeah. Who do you think you're, Byron? Come on now. Jack, what do you want to get with this goal? I mean,
Richard.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question here, and let me see if you can figure out where I'm going with this.
All right.
If you had to guess, who do you think was one of the two people that had a body on Marcus Thuram before that kick was taken?
If one of two bodies, it would either be Kabak or Nastasic.
It was Matej Nastasic and Omar Mascarell, both of whom immediately turn their back on him and lose him so that he's open for the rebound. There's two people on him.
Yeah.
It's a nice set play from Gladbach, but it's just bad defending. It's the kind of stuff we see all the time. People are just falling asleep, they're ball watching, they're not sticking on their man. I mean,
and just before that, Kabak was actually on plie, and he really didn't do well. The reaction wasn't great to give him opportunity to shoot. He was slow to react, and then, like you said, Nastasic and Mascarell really not doing Thuram any favors, or did a big favor, I should say, and let him open so he could get that goal.
Yeah. I hate doing this like very this kind of level of analysis week after week. It's just like, well, another moment where somebody falls asleep. There's not anything interesting to talk about after a while. It's just
we're hoping they listen to the podcast and get it through their head that this is what's going on. You need to pay attention a bit more. Just little things make big problems when you especially defensively in your own box. If you don't mark the right guy, a goal's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's much more interesting to talk about why these opportunities are created in terms of like how the opponent is attacking and exploiting the system that you're in to create some of these opportunities. But so often on the goals that we concede, there's just too many individual mistakes happening at various parts of the field for you to like point to something on like a tactical level. I mean, I'm sure there are things to talk about, but it's just like it feels kind of pointless to even address some of that when it's the same people falling asleep week after week, goal after goal. So,
well, I mean, since we're talking about that, just to round all the goals out in the 80th minute, Kabak way up high in the midfield. Causes a turnover, tries to do a little too much, and I get it. It was under pressure with Plie. Plie ends up getting the ball, finds Hannes Wolf. Hannes Wolf gets the goal, 4-1. I mean, at that point, Daniel, you already knew the game was already won at that point, but it didn't seem like while you guys had the counterattack and it was very lethal, it was Schalke again beating themselves up more than anything. Or what did you see from your side?
Yeah, I kind of after the third goal, 3-1. Unless something again kind of Gladbach got a player sent off or something crazy expected. We were kind of expecting 3 points, and I think it was a little bit of a mix of things. Schalke very justifiably, we're gonna continue attacking, committing people forward, and falling hands again into that counterattack. But I think kind of at the end of the game, especially in the 80th minute, I think both teams are kind of going through those kinds of motions where Schalke are just desperately trying to throw people forward. Gladbach are really just sitting back, making the substitutions, getting people on for some match sharpness, and just trying to see out the game.
Yeah, it seems like a game like this could go one of two ways at least for you guys from your perspective. It either keeps that confidence going sky high, or could maybe expose some weaknesses that you weren't sure, or maybe being a little complacent that you weren't expecting to do, and it could really hurt you going forward. Do you feel that game at all whatsoever? Because the way that it went, that it maybe helped you, go out the rest of the season, or you think maybe there's a little bit of complacency going on with you guys, and maybe after that third goal, you kind of just really wanted to see it out, like you said?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of those weaknesses that the game exposed were probably in the first 20-25 minutes, where Gladbach, I say kind of as the game was going on, it was clear that they wanted to take the approach of staying back and waiting for the counter. But they actually did try to attempt to really control the game that Schalke were doing and wrestling for possession. And that resulted in, I think Kramer and Neuhaus probably misplaced like 4 or 5 just simple passes to the person next to them and not even being pressured or anything like that. So I think the biggest weakness that it showed, not so much at the end of the game, but at the beginning, that Gladbach can't really take for granted that they're just going to control every game. And I think along the way, they kind of learned a strength that they have is even if they're not changing their formation, they're being a little bit tactically flexible, that they can adapt in game, that recognizing, okay, we're not, for whatever reason, we're not controlling this game. We can't complete passes. Schalke are very adamant about having possession, controlling it. Well, let's sit back and have that change kind of before even halftime, before Rosa and the staff have to kind of implement that and get that across.
Yeah, Jack, it was a tough game for us, no doubt about it. It started out well. I think there's some positives we can take from the game. That we did start out the game fairly well. We took it to Gladbach for good portions of the first half. We just need to find a way to keep that train rolling. And if we go down a goal, keep pushing back. They did it the one time, but like you said, when that second goal went in, it kind of got deflated, and you saw more Gladbach taking over.
Just quickly on that last goal, I did have to do one of these real quick because Kabak was doing his best Stambouli impression there on the charging way out of position to try to cut off something that doesn't work, and that they get in behind. Anyway, it's I understand that there's going to be a lot of Schalke supporters who watch this, and I agree with it to a certain extent, and will probably increasingly agree with it as time goes on, in the sense that we can talk about improvement all we like, but when we're losing 4-1, how much improvement is there actually taking place? And I think there's some, and I think I do think that Manuel Baum has had an effect on the team, but ultimately it's still, there's just too much naive defending happening and too many individual mistakes, and those are things that are very difficult to coach out of players. I don't know on some of these plays what Manuel Baum can realistically do to show them footage and be like, here's how you correct this. It's very basic stuff that some of these guys should know. We thought that we had kind of gotten the defense under control a little bit. It's looking like it's slipping away from us again, which is a problem.
It seemed like at one point that we really weren't sure what the problem was, whether it was goal scoring or what it was. But what we've seen lately, at least out of Manuel Baum's team, is that the one area that continues to be a blaring weakness is the defense. The attack is starting to get their head around it now. Midfield is a little bit better. That defense has been porous.
And the problem with this is, if you're conceding, 1 goal a game, maybe 2, and you throw a couple clean sheets in there, then you could say, okay, it's not our offense, such as it is, might be able to overcome this at certain period of time and get us some results. But our offense is not good right now either. We have the fewest goals scored, tied with Bielefeld, I believe, and the most goals conceded. Our offense is not in a position where it can outfire our defense and get us results. So if we start slipping back and do this 3-goal, 4-goal game thing, I mean, there's not a lot that we can do about where we're headed. I mean, we have to find a way to fix the defense first and foremost, and not be under pressure so much so that the offense actually has a chance to go out there and try to improve.
Here's a damning statistic. As bad as we've been, it says this is courtesy of Deutsche Welle Sports. Schalke have gone 21 Bundesliga games without keeping a clean sheet. The last time they didn't concede was a 0-0 draw versus Mainz in February. This is pre-COVID. That's pretty alarming. We talk about the defense being bad. They haven't stopped any goals from going in a long time, nearly a year. Oh boy. Well, as for Gladbach, let's change the topic just a little bit. You guys had a big game, obviously, against Inter today, and in the next 5 games, they're pretty decent games. You got Freiburg coming up in the league. You got Real Madrid, which is a big game for you guys, to make sure that I think you're gonna qualify anyway, but it's just to make sure it's put a point on that. Then you got Hertha, Eintracht, and Hoffenheim. What are you looking to see out of these next 5 games, especially the 4 games in the Bundesliga?
I think it's still trying to maintain that balance of, we're going to go all in with our strongest 11 against Real Madrid. I think right now no matter what, we're going to get knockout stages, either Champions League or Europa League. But I think we need a tie to secure next round of Champions League and a win to top the group. So they're definitely going to be up for that. I think the biggest game, Eintracht Frankfurt, is always going to be tough, but actually Frankfurt, historically, Gladbach have always kind of either underestimated them or always slipped up, and they haven't had their best start of the season. So I have a feeling that they're due for a nice Christian strike magic. So hopefully that's not against us. So I think maintain that balance of rotating players, especially I think there's a midweek game in there, the DFB Pokal game. Maintain that balance and really not making sure you overestimate or underestimate a team. But I think the Frankfurt and Freiburg game are gonna be two tough ones.
Well, Daniel, thank you for joining us and helping us break this one down. Any of our listeners can probably tell how much better Daniel is tactically just by than we are.
100%.
I mean, even this has raised the game of the podcast already. So thank you. We appreciate you getting the Gladbach perspective and helping us not feel so alone as we talk about what is transpiring with our beloved club.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's definitely different analyzing games and talking tactics over a podcast and instead of in front of your nice little graphics board or something like that. But yeah, I appreciate it. Hopefully maybe in the Rückrunde, hopefully Schalke have a little bit more luck, but not against Gladbach then.
We'll see.
Daniel, where can our followers find you? Not only find you on Twitter, but also your tactics blog.
They can find my tactics blog. Has its own Twitter page at Fohlen Analysis, and there's a link to the WordPress blog. You can see a couple of the articles from last season. I usually tweet kind of my tactical thoughts on that Twitter account as well, and hopefully hopefully this weekend and so forth, maybe until February, I should have weekly tactical reviews of all the Gladbach games. So yeah, you can find me there, interact with me there, talk about Gladbach or the Bundesliga.
Good work. Good luck with your schoolwork, sir, for the rest of the year here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Have a great one.
Yeah, you too.
See you. All right, that was Daniel McDermott from Die Fohlen Analysis. Definitely upping our game here on the podcast with the tactical analysis that we can't bring, apparently. Gerd says, thanks, Daniel and Gladbach, for the one win this year. That's true. That is a good point. Before we move on, Gerd had a point about, some more positivity, saying that look at the standings of the 9 games we played, 7 of the teams are in the top 8 or so. And that's a good point. As we've been talking about, if we can keep doing the same, especially the last couple of games, the way we've been playing against these teams, against some of these lower teams, we need to translate that into some goals or wins, both.
Yeah, this is a good point here. We talked about how difficult our schedule was to start, but we're entering a run of games here before the Winterpause that are very important. Outside of Bayer Leverkusen, which is that our next game?
Leverkusen
might be. Yes, but outside of Leverkusen, who are in the top 4, we're playing Augsburg, we're playing Freiburg, we're playing Bielefeld. I think we're playing Hertha, Hoffenheim are in there as well, and Frankfurt and Cologne. So we have maybe like 1 or 2 teams in there that are even in the top 10, I think, or top 8. And then after that, there's a lot of teams around us. So if we are going to start getting some results and really seeing a positive turnaround of the team, this would be when you would expect to hopefully see it. And it's also just even more important because as much as we've tried to stave off relegation talk on this podcast, and we'll continue to do so until it actually becomes something of a real possibility mathematically.
Yeah.
We're playing teams here in the next few games that are around us in the table right now. And so if we do end up staying in this part of the table, these are super important games in terms of, to get points and get some distance between you and the other guys near the bottom. So, but there is reason for optimism. Our schedule is going to ease up, and hopefully we find a way to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. Let's get into some positivity before we get into some of the stuff that happened this last week, because there was a lot of we had a season's worth of drama in the last week. But to the good stuff first, we want to give a shout out to our good friends at the Halbfeldflanke. They're doing their own advent calendar, if you will, 30 days of Schalke fans' favorite players. And the first day is today, and it's Klaus Fischer. So definitely give them a follow. Check out the webpage. Check out if you just follow them, Halbfeldflanke, excuse me, my tongue twister, on Twitter. And every day they're going to do out a new one, just an advent calendar would be. And it's good stuff. Our friends there, so definitely give them a check out there. Good shout out there for them.
We wanted to be involved in that, but we said that we were going to be requesting Lord DeSanto, and they immediately
and Berkshire didn't work. Yeah.
Rescinded that. No, I'm just kidding.
That is very true. But yeah, let's get into what happened this last week, because it's not been pretty. First news that came out.
Podcast, my friend.
It is, and we have to vent though, because a lot of shit happened. First thing that happened was Michal Reshka was let go. He's gone. Next thing we had was Ibisevic. His contract terminated. So the two new guys that we have coming to the season for striker, they're both gone. One's on injury. That's Paciencia. But Ibisevic, he's been terminated. And then Harit and Bentaleb both get suspended. So,
Lisa, I don't need this. I swear to God, I do not need this right now, okay?
And it's true. We don't need this. And you think it couldn't get worse, right? But no, it does get worse, because before the game, we find out there's injuries galore. And we alluded to it a little earlier. Paciencia had a big injury. Matando was injured. Ceane, which I don't know the extent of his injury, Jack. Do you know how long he's out?
I'm super distracted right now because I'm concerned that we didn't get permission to, and I don't want him coming after us. I want Joe Pesci. I don't want Joe Pesci, of all people, coming after the podcast for the copyright stuff. Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
Salif Ceane. Do you know how long he's injured?
I do not. It sounded like his injury did not require surgery like Paciencia's did. So hopefully it's going to be much more short term. I thought I saw something that said he may have even been doing individual training already. I could be totally wrong about that though. So hopefully we have him back before the winter pause, but don't quote me on that.
And I think Paciencia's surgery was today, and I think it was successful, but still it's a long recovery. Anyway, Fairman, he's out with an injury. Ochipka was out with an injury. Yeah, we thought maybe this is a chance for the Free Katuchi movement to get a chance, but no. There's a positive case, and it is alleged that he is the one who got the positive case. That's why he wasn't playing. So because of all these injuries, all these injuries and COVID case, we had to bring in some Knappensschmiede players. Jan-Luca Schuler, who entered the game, he actually came on for Matthew Hopp. Florian Flick, Karim Çalhanoğlu, who's a cousin of Hakan Çalhanoğlu, and Mikael Madden. Oh, and Matthew Hopp, who got the start in this one. Let's talk about some of the two young boys who actually started this game. Matthew Hopp, what'd you make of his first start?
I actually liked some of his off the ball movement quite a bit.
He's a lot taller than I thought he was.
I thought he made some interesting runs that at times weren't appreciated. One of them, I seem to remember, he made a nice run on a counterattack early in the match, kind of through the middle, and it looked like Mark Oot may have been able to play him in for a shot on goal, and Oot ended up holding it up and then firing his own shot from outside the box that was not hit with, I think he kind of scuffed it a little bit. There was another one where it looked like Hobb had maybe drawn a foul right at the edge of the penalty area, which was not called, and then Mascarell attacked them on the counter, which they also let go as part of like a makeup call for not calling that foul. There's one other time I seem to remember he was making a nice run off the shoulder on a counterattack, and Suat Serdar waited 3 seconds too late to play a ball to him, and then it ended up being missed. I don't know. So what I would say is I think there were a couple moments where Daniel was talking about body language and that leading to sometimes inaccurate passing and that sort of things. There was a couple times where I thought Matthew was a little bit too casual with some of his passing, and that seemed to become a little bit more of a problem after the 30th minute or so. I'm trying to remember exactly when all these things happened, but I would say I would say he did a little bit better than I expected him to do overall, based on what we've been hearing from people that actually watch Knappensschmiede games. We would have
loved to see him score a goal, but I mean, considering that, he did fairly well, I thought. And then we got to see he was substituted out, and Jan-Luca Schuler, another young Knappensschmiede, came in. He looked okay too. Another big body. He had a good header that went over, but we would like to see him do better. But still, he was involved.
9-minute cameo when the game was already lost. Those are the kind of minutes Katuchu gets. I don't really feel like judging Schuler on the basis of what was going on at that point.
Yeah. Exactly. This week had been crazy, and the craziest thing that happened yet. So, like we said, Reshka's out. Ibisevic is terminated. Bentaleb, Harit suspended. Where do you want to start with that?
Let's just go in order, I guess. Let's start with Reshka. First of all, what were your thoughts on that announcement? Were you surprised by that?
I was not surprised. Okay. We heard rumors that there were some disagreements between the two meaning Reshka and Schneider. and that there were a lot of disagreements going back and forth about how they do things. There's also rumors this week that Reshka tried to set up a deal between Omar Mascarell and Hertha Berlin, a sale that neither Mascarell nor Schneider knew about. So that kind of added to things, and so I was not surprised to see him go. I mean, if anyone's going to go between Schneider or Reshka, I thought it was Reshka. What about you?
So I'm trying to remember the chronology of when this stuff happened. I mean, isn't Reshka like a Schneider hire? Or did those things happen separately? Because I thought when Schneider got appointed, he brought in Reshka as a squad planner. So the idea that they're not, which is not to say that like a working relationship can't, dissipate over time or something, but it was my understanding that he was somebody that like got brought in specifically because they were on the same page, and he liked what Reshka had done in the direction he was taking. So the idea that they're butting heads and suddenly don't have an agreement on a vision is a little bit surprising. And then also just, I don't know, it's not a good sign for the club in the terms of, some of the people that are pulling the strings in terms of management and squad planning. They can't even pull in the same direction, which is what we need at the moment. But I guess we'll have to see if we notice any discernible shift, I guess, in January, if we try to do anything and say, hey, that seems like a move that's kind of outside the box that maybe Reshka wouldn't have done. I don't know. I don't have, it's hard to know like who is responsible for exactly what at times. And so at times it's hard to judge certain people for their performance overall in the club. But I guess I was slightly more surprised than you were by it.
Yeah. And so that's one thing that happened this week. The next thing, Ibisevic's contract's getting terminated. Now, the quote came out from Schneider, said that it wasn't because of the tussle between him and Naldo, though it was very, very much coincidence that it did happen right after the fact. I mean, I don't know. We brought in a guy, Ibisevic, and I thought he had that potential of being that guy who, one, he's a poacher, but also just having that locker room presence, being an elder statesman. And all of a sudden he's gone. I was probably more shocked about this than I was about Reshka. What about you?
I think part of the problem we have with some of this, and we'll get into this more in a minute, is just I feel like there has been something of a lack, not a lack of transparency, that's not the right word, but like a lack of details.
Yeah. In
terms of why some of these decisions were made in all these press releases, whether it's in Schneider's comments or other people's comments. So, I think if I remember correctly, it was said that, for in Ibisevic's case, I'm trying to pull up the quote here actually right now. If I can find it, if you can give me like 2 seconds. How our work together hadn't gone as we had both hoped, basically was the sentiment in general. I find that to be a very strange comment because it begs the question: what was Ibisevic pitched when he was brought into the club?
Starting role or what? Like, I
mean, that's the thing, because he's unhappy with how it went. Is he unhappy just because we're losing? I mean, surely he knew that he was being brought in because we were on this massive win the streak, had no money and we needed like striker help. Was he promised a starting role and didn't get it? That seems unlikely as well. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but this is what I'm saying. The lack of details that really make sense, I think, foster speculation, and that's not necessarily helpful. I would have liked, and maybe there's details out there that I haven't seen in other media sources or whatever, but I was somewhat surprised by that as well. And especially, like, as you said, the timing of it with the Naldo thing, it wasn't related to that, but then it happens right after that. I mean, something was clearly going on there, and and not what we needed, because even though Ibisevic hadn't done a whole lot, I did think he looked okay when he came on the pitch, and we certainly need that depth, given what happened to Paciencia and just in general.
Let's not talk about what happened about these next two players by the commentator, but we'll get to that after. But the other news we heard was Bentaleb and Harit both suspended and had to be forced to train by themselves. All signs are that they're not going to be back on the team. We kind of knew something was going to happen with Harit, at least, because he left the game after 39th minute. He left the pitch, and he was pissed off, and whatever. There's also rumors, and we want to clear up after the game, that Stambouli had also, when he got substituted off, he just left the stadium, which was untrue, because I think he ended up leaving with Naldo or Paciencia or somebody like that. So that rumor was untrue. But Harit was obviously in a big hissy fit after he got subbed out and I can see why he would be upset, but he didn't do anything to promote not coming off. So there's that. So he got suspended, and then Nabil Bentaleb, someone who's had discipline problems in the past, gets suspended again. What do you make of these two moves?
Once again, as I just said regarding the previous thing, when it comes to Bentaleb in particular, we say this on the podcast a lot. We don't see what happens behind the scenes. We don't see what happens in training. We don't see what happens in the locker room. You and I are in America. We're not privy to everything that goes on. As far as the Bentaleb thing goes, though, there was nothing demonstrable in the way we saw Harit's body language, right? We saw the extent to which we thought there were times he wasn't buying in. We saw how he reacted to being subbed off in the 38th minute and all that. With Bentaleb, we didn't see any of that.
No.
He came on against Wolfsburg in the second half, looked pretty bright, right? Like looked decent. And then the details that emerge are non-existent. It's clear that Bentaleb and Schalke aren't a fit together. And so this is what I'm saying is the lack of details into why this decision was made allows there to be rampant speculation as to what's really going on. And then Bentaleb gets to come out and do his own PR campaign where he says, I'm shocked by this. There was no reason. I didn't do anything. Yeah. And the club hasn't countered that in any way. And so, I mean, I'm sure there's reasons why details on what happened haven't been given. And I'm not in PR communications. I don't know what goes into these decisions from the club's perspective, but I just think it's a little bit unwise in the sense that have Bentaleb being able to go out and say whatever he wants, and it makes Schalke look like they're just making these weird decisions. You combine that with I think there's a lot of Schalke supporters right now who are sort of hypersensitive. I mean, I think the entire world is with the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement and the events of earlier this year, but particularly, there's a lot of fans based on the Clemens Turney situations that are hypersensitive to racism or any sort of perceived racism anywhere in and around the club. The two players who are suspended are North African players. Stefan Freund doesn't help us by going on TV and then suggesting that it's something to do with their heritage, which is why they're temperamental and don't buy in or something like that, which is not the right thing to say and is, certainly wrong. And that just, I think, added to the whole negative image of these whole moves and everything is who the players were and some of the things that are being said by third parties. So yeah, just a tough week and hopefully some more things come to light. I'm trying not to be judgmental about it. And I think there have been some overreactions. It's just like, just tell us what's going on. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree. And I think this whole week has just been crazy. And then when that Stefan Freund came out, I think the perfect quote for that is...
And let me see, what else could we pile on? Is there any more shit we could pile on to the top of the outcome of this case? Is it possible?
That's how I felt. I was like, what is this bull? I mean, what else is going to happen now? The Stefan Freund thing, I think, was disgusting. And I don't know. I wasn't there. I mean, people are saying, no one on the panel said anything. Oh, by the way, Benedict Hovidis was on that panel. Just throwing it out there.
I didn't know that.
He was. But this whole thing came out, which was disgusting. I'm glad Schalke Nation stepped up and voiced their angst against him. Not only them, but it was a bunch of people came out. Schalke came out immediately, which they should have, and said, this is bullshit. You cannot say this kind of stuff. And that's not the quote. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. But they obviously came up and stood up about that. Freund did come out and apologize, but people aren't taking that for granted. And a lot of his friends, and we've had some of his co-workers on the podcast before, so they may know a different side to him. But from what we saw, from like you said, everyone's hypersensitive at the moment. Is not a good look, and the excuses that he made about it was unfounded, untrue, and that's not the reason why they were let go. And I completely disagree with everything he said, whether he meant it or not. Both from they don't fit to the club and also but with his comments.
Yeah, and shout out to Schalke for sending that tweet as soon as they did, because that was the kind of strong response that I think was needed in that situation. So props on that front. The other thing I would say is that these are two players that have a demonstrated history of disciplinary issues, and so I think we should potentially cut Schalke the benefit of the doubt in this situation.
Sure.
Like these are two guys that we know have had issues in the past with staying committed or following team rules, like arriving late, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so the notion that we would, if Harit and Bentaleb were bought in, had the right attitude, were playing well, and were guys that Manuel Baum, for instance, was like, these people are crucial to me being successful at my job. And turning this thing around. If that was the case, I find it very hard to believe that Schneider or anybody else would have just said, too bad, I'm pulling them out of the squad. Yeah. You know what I mean? So some of this I would have to think has to come from Baum as well, in terms of like, this is an issue. And from that perspective, that's what I mean, is it's not surprising because there's a demonstrated history. So it's easy to believe that this is the case. It's just the lack of the details are I think the problem, and why you're seeing so much speculation online from various people, because at least as far as I'm aware, we still don't have any details as to what happened with Bentaleb, and we couldn't see anything either. At least in the Harit case, we could kind of see some stuff that makes sense, maybe, you know?
Yeah. And we saw after the fact, Baum, and maybe I think it was just before the Gladbach game, how we talked about how we're gonna fight hard and make sure the players who are playing for the team. I think the comments were after the game actually. That players who are gonna play for the team are who are we gonna try to play out there, whether it's younger players or the players who are there now. And you start to see a little bit in that lineup with some of the guys who are out there, guys who are going to hustle, for the whole time that they're out there. That's good. Matthew Hopp did a fairly decent job for himself. Be nice to see, Bozdogan again, who we haven't seen in a long time, because he seemed to show that kind of hustle when he's out there. So, yeah, we're as a team overall, we need to step it up, play harder. Doesn't matter where the hell you're from, just play hard, play for the club. Play for the fans, and so we need to see that. It's unfortunate all this shit has happened in this last week. Like I said, it's a year's worth of stuff happened in the last couple of days, and it's been crazy. I don't know what to say on that anymore. To say anything else you want to say on that before we get to the listeners' questions and answers?
No, I guess what I would say is just to the fans that are freaking out about this, because I know that Bentaleb in particular has his supporters amongst fans. I don't know. It just if Harit was in the kind of form he was in, early last year when he was bailing us out constantly, if Bentaleb was in peak form, for when he was in a Schalke kit, maybe this would be a different conversation. I would understand the pushback to some extent, but I guess what I would say is that it certainly seems that there's things happening behind the scenes that aren't public, and we should, before we pile on and try to go crazy over this, we should probably just give him the benefit of the doubt and see how it plays out. And who knows? Maybe the results are going to turn around shortly with improved team spirit if these guys were bad in the locker room or whatever. Yeah. And you certainly can't blame somebody like Mandelbaum or Schneider for the situation they're in to try to trim down the squad to the people that you think are absolutely essential in terms of their buy-in to the mission and everything. So, as always, our message is let's all just kind of try to remain as calm as possible and see what happens. So, not that you can't have opinions on things, but
So with those comments that Schneider said about Bentaleb, it sounds like there's a very likely chance that he's going to be gone in the January window, if at the latest in the summer window. But it looks like January window. Harit, who knows? We'll see if this is any further than the one game that he pouted at or not. But it's certainly it's a difficult time at the moment. So.
One other thing. I know that we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, so I apologize.
That's all
here's my question to you. Let's assume for a second that all the suspensions that we've seen have been super justified, right? Mm-hmm. Like they deserve to take place. Schneider did say in his comments that there is a way back into the squad for both of those players, although we did see the stuff about Bentaleb potentially being sold, so I don't know if he's walked that back at all. But would you even want Harit back in the squad at this point?
Not the way he's been playing this year. He hasn't done anything on the pitch that would say, well, we need him back. We need to have him back.
Because that's the point I'm trying to make is this is not the first time this has happened. And so you give a player a second chance. And once again, we don't know what went on in this situation, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. But you give a player a second chance. If there's a repeated pattern of behavior, you don't just keep him around because he plays well when everything's going well at the club. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's unfortunate. It's just at this point, it's do we even care? If this is going to be a repeated issue, is this somebody that we actually even want in or on the squad? Who knows? Certainly a talented player, and regardless of what happens with either of them, I wish them well in their careers and everything, because they're both very good players, and certainly not an easy place to apply your trade at the moment in Gelsenkirchen.
Yeah. Absolutely. Some of the questions, let's start with the questions here in the chat group. Paul Forster, he says, where do you see Nick Taitagui, and Matthew Hopp in the next year or two? Do they both have what it takes to succeed in the Bundesliga? You want to take this one first?
I think we got to see it from Taitagui before I can even weigh in on that. Schalke's kept him around. He's a player that I've liked when I've seen highlights of him. I think he's an interesting player, but until he gets some minutes and we're able to actually judge him in a Bundesliga context, it's very difficult to be he's definitely going to be a Bundesliga player when he hasn't really even gotten that opportunity. Yeah. Matthew Hopp as well. Does he get called up right now if it weren't for the cancellation of Ibisevic's contract, of Pasiensian's injury, of Katuchu's COVID test, all these other factors? Probably not. You would say, but hopefully he can take this opportunity, show what he's got, and maybe stick around in the squad and then go from there. And we'd certainly love to see that as Americans. It's just it's tough to say. The sample size for both players at a senior level is very small right now.
There's probably a good chance we'll probably see Evan Rotondo and CDBaby before anything as done.
CDBaby, maybe.
That's right. Our buddy Jake, he says, I thought Hop played well given his age and experience, great attitude and his work ethic. He seems to be right on target in development. Hopefully he continues progressing. Agree about that. And there's another comment he made about with the quality and experience we are putting on the field, these individual mistakes and mental breakdowns should really not be a surprise. When you play good opponents, those mistakes get punished. And
yeah.
That's what we've been talking about is like, let's stop making mistakes and giving an easy one to the opposition because they're going to kill us on those. The top teams are clinical. We need to make them beat us, not just give them an easy one. So
for sure.
Jake again, he's very lively. I like it. He says, best guess what percentage chance Harit is sold in January? That cash could bolster in some areas that need help in the short term. Yeah, I would say it's a smaller percentage than Bentaleb. I think Bentaleb you're probably looking at 90%, I would guess, maybe 75 at the lowest. Harit, I would say 25%.
That's the difficult thing now too, is like,
we don't know.
If Harit had been on the block last December after the Hinrinder that he had, we're talking about a transfer valuation of, however much.
Yeah.
And then after that, not only are we in a bad run of form, is he in a bad run of form, but now all of the financial detail, everyone's like, so it was already a buyer's market when it came to Schalke selling players. Now you have somebody that they've suspended from the squad for we can't go to somebody and be like, well, he's a really important player to us, so you gotta pony up. It's like we're desperate for cash and we're not even using him. So
yeah.
If he does get sold, I don't even know. I would kind of like to get,
if we got 15 million, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the way this is probably going to pan out because we've talked on this podcast so many times about how we seem to come off on the losing end of so many of our transfer negotiations. Seems like we're slated for that with these two guys as well.
Yeah, this time it's not for free, but it's the whole situation of everything going on that kind of compounds everything. So comment on Facebook, it says from Hadiz Abad, he says, after the results of Gladbach game, where do you think the direction of our beloved team is going? I think it's slightly going up, because I like what I saw the first 30 minutes, first 25 minutes against Gladbach. I thought we offensively looked like we had the spark. Using Mark Uth as a catalyst offensively is the way to go. Benito Raman, getting him involved. Need to find some more help for those two guys. Skripski, maybe he's going to be able to get involved a little bit more. Who knows? But there were some positive signs there offensively. Defensively, we have a lot of issues still. But I think there's another tick upwards. We're slowly trending upward again. Slowly. What do you think?
It's just, what ultimately transpired in the Gladbach game and then also, the Wolfsburg match after a slightly more positive result against Mainz is concerning to some extent. But I would agree with you that I think, especially the first 15 minutes, but even the first half hour of that game, I thought we looked pretty good. And that was, once again, some of the better football I think we've played all season at this point. So that is a positive, but we need to find a way as a team to sustain that for 90 minutes, to not collapse at some point, and just really stay locked in and not commit some of these individual mistakes. Because you can have 10 guys on the pitch, that are doing their job at any given moment. And if one guy turns off, that's sometimes all you need for there to be a goal on the score sheet. So, it's a process. Like I said, these upcoming games are against relatively worse opponents in terms of their table position. Now that we've had Manuel Baum for a while, he's, coached a number of games, a couple international breaks under his belt. This is when we would expect to start seeing stuff, and hopefully we see it soon. Because I do think that if we get to the Winterpause and we still haven't registered our first win and are still losing a lot of games, it's going to become increasingly difficult to try to stay optimistic about where the season's headed.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Here's an interesting question or comment from Kamono. He says, I believe Kabak and Bentaleb are very likely to be gone in January. Kabak, if we let him go a year ago, it would have got a lot of money for him. Now, it's going to be a lot less. It's still going to be a good amount. 25 mil, but not what he's worth, I think. And he says it really hopes Harit comes back soon because he's very important to the team. I would counter that Kabak is more important to the team than Harit is. If both players, it's hard to say. If both players are playing at their top form, mean, Hurry's going to get the goals, and Kabak's going to be stuffing guys in the other end. So I don't know. They're equally as important, I guess. I don't know. It's a difficult one. Who would draw more money at the moment? Probably Kabak, I would think.
It's also like Ozan Kabak has not necessarily been a model of consistency either in terms of his play overall. Like we've seen some very strong performances from him where you're like, this guy looks like he could be, one of these center backs in Europe in coming years. And then there's games this season even where it's just like this today. I mean, against Gladbach was one of them. You're like, what is this guy doing? Like, he's better than this.
Yeah.
Like, the passing's not there and all kinds of things. So it's tough. Yeah, I agree with you. I think at this point, because I think there's a chance that Harit and Bentaleb might be viewed as slightly tainted goods on a transfer market because of disciplinary stuff. I don't think Kabak will be viewed that way. Yeah. And I have seen stuff with AC Milan and Liverpool being linked to him. So hopefully he is the person that's probably in the position to get us the most money. And I wouldn't, obviously I like the guy and I want to keep him around, but we got to do what we got to do at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Another comment from David Thalen says, with Ibisevic gone, Pacienza injury, probably long-term, Katuchu out injured, which I'm not sure about that. Well, we can verify that later, but it looks like Hope might be getting a lot more playing time. I agree about that. I don't know who they're going to go to right now. I mean, if it's Harit is just a positive case, then he's at least going for one more game. You would think. But if it's injury, it could be obviously longer. So there's at least one more game for Matthew Hopp with the game against Leverkusen coming up on the horizon. But it could be a good chance for him to actually get into the lineup and maybe do something, get some confidence going. I think having Ut and Rahman around him will help. If he gets a goal in there, who knows? Maybe this really ignites the offense with three guys going. We'll see. But what do you think about the prospects of Hopp getting more opportunity?
I think if he wants more opportunities down the line, he's going to have to do something. I mean, and we don't even know if he's going to start against Leverkusen. Schuler could start.
Yeah.
Or Baum could play, by himself up top, or Rahman up. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Assuming Matthew Hoppe does get another opportunity against Leverkusen, I think it's super important for him to make an impact, because I find it hard to believe that, once Katuchu's back and healthy, assuming let's say we get Paciencia back at some point this season, that unless we see something significant, that Baum is going to be like, yeah, it's Matthew Hoppe that I want in the starting lineup as opposed to one of those other two guys. But we'll see. Like we said, I mean, less than 90 minutes under his belt now as a professional footballer, so extremely small sample size and a lot of growth and a lot of work to do. But I didn't dislike everything I saw from him. I thought he did some good things, and if he keeps that going and then maybe makes a big goal impact, who knows?
Yeah, I agree. Comment from Glenn on Facebook says, we showed something last game that we haven't seen for a long time. We looked dangerous at times. We looked like we had control. First sign this year that we will win and claw up the mid-table. Can we sustain it, though? Will Baum reward the players, or will he tinker with the lineup again, like you kind of just mentioned? As for the defense, he really has little option there other than the three at the back until Sané is fit. Also, this could have been a free Katuchu moment. Unfortunately, that's a shame for him.
It really is. Yeah, it looked like he was gearing up for that, and then he ended up not even being.
Yeah, we're like, oh, come on, such a tease. I know. It's the interesting thing about the lineup. Is he going to give the guys who did, like I said, there was some positive signs the first half. Will they give an opportunity to continue that in this next game, build off of that against another difficult opponent, or will he tinker with the lineup? What I don't necessarily want to see, because I don't think it was effective, was against Dortmund. We tried to adapt to their formation, went with the 3-5-2, and it looked really poor the whole game. I don't want to see us try to do that. I
don't want to see us try to be like Dortmund ever in any way, in any capacity.
This is 100% true. This is 100% true. But I don't want to see us adapt our lineup to try to match whatever they're doing, because we don't have the horses to match them. We have to use what we've been using, what we're familiar with, and try to find a system out of that, or try to be disciplined defensively and build off of that on the counters or whatever. That might be the way to go. But tinkering with the lineup at this point it's the mentality is fragile, like you said. You need to give some confidence to these guys, give them some opportunities week in and week out. I don't know. Next comment from the Virginia Canapin says, I'm sure the main theme will be who will step up being leaders on and off the pitch, and in the club management, and then for us being Schalke. I am positive that the situation is being addressed. We've talked about this before. Someone's got to step up to be a leader. We saw a little bit of Mark Uth a couple weeks ago. Some other guys have said some comments too that have been good, but Mascarell, you're quiet. You need to step up and say some things. Maybe he's doing it in the locker room. We don't know. We're not there, but we need some leaders out there. The days of having Huvidas back there, or even guys like Huntelaar and some of these guys that in the more recent years, they're not there anymore. Naldo's in the locker room, but he's not playing. Fairman, he's out injured. You need someone to step up.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, I think to some extent when you're in a situation like this, words only go so far, and at some point you need somebody to step up on the pitch and just gain that respect via what they're doing on the field. If there's anyone that's doing that right now, to me, it's actually Mark Oot, if anybody. I think maybe Benito Ramon's another shout.
Yeah.
And we're not in the locker room. We don't know who's stepping up and saying things and trying, whatever. Naldo that's part of the reason they brought Naldo in. Hopefully he's one of the guys that's trying to be that. Yeah, it's just tough. Somebody on this team, or maybe a couple of people, have to really just try to grab the team by the scruff of the neck and pull them forward and lead by example.
Yeah, Jake says Mark Oot is as close as we've got to a leader. I love Ramon providing energy. Yep, I agree on both of those. Last comment and last question. Comments from Mike Pernot on Facebook says, I hope the youth movement continues. Give chances to players who are hungry to make their mark. I agree. Again, Chen Bazdawan. I was going to keep saying his name until he gets on the damn pitch. Him or Katucci, right? And then lastly, this is the last question for us. From Eric on Twitter says, less deserving to stay in the job right now, Joachim Löw or Schneider? Why don't you take Schneider's side in this one? I'll take Löw.
No, I mean, yeah. What I would say, and this is kind of the point I was trying to get at earlier in this podcast, is I was seeing a lot of stuff online this week, given the week that we had, in the media and everything. I feel like there's way too much blame being directed Joachim Schneider's way. I mean, keep in mind what position the club was in when he took it over, which was, a financial situation that had been deteriorating for a while. I mean, he came in on the backs of, a horrible stretch in Tedesco's second season. I mean, he's gone into the helm of this club at a very tumultuous time in its existence. I mean, Clemens Toney steps down in the midst of this as well. So, I mean, to be like, this is all Schneider's fault, I think is a little bit naive. Now, I mean, have there been mistakes? Sure. I mean, and has he covered himself in glory at times? No. But once again, there's a holistic picture. There's a lot of different areas where there's issues right now. And so when it comes to like, should Schneider lose his job? You and I never advocate for that on the podcast. We try to be very careful about that. But also, I don't think that's the conversation that needs to be happening right now. Because I don't think changing the sporting director in November, almost December, is going to somehow result in this change. I mean, maybe I'm very naive about this and how, that can affect things. But with what we're seeing on the pitch and where the squad is at the moment in the financial situation, like I think there's only so much somebody can do in that position. And so yeah, when it comes to that question, I don't even really want to engage with it. No offense.
Yeah, and also Joachim Löw. I thought, look what he's done for Die Mannschaft. He's done, I mean, fantastic job. He's brought the first World Cup in a long time. I mean, he's revolutionized the sport in the way we look at things. They're playing with a false nine. Well, they were playing with a false nine. Now a lot of the guys are getting older, not performing. But every juggernaut has a down moment, a dip. We've seen it with Spain. We've seen it with a lot of the teams. Netherlands are just coming out of theirs. France had one before. Now they're back. There's ebbs and flows for everybody, and I think Löw deserves the opportunity to try to fix it before he goes. I don't think he's gonna be fired, so I think his job is pretty safe as well. You come with a pedigree like he does, and the way he's changed the game so much, I think he deserves an opportunity to kind of fix all that. But yeah. So anyway, and you mentioned Tedesco just a minute ago. We had to give him a shout out.
Yeah,
he's been playing pretty well. He was voted unanimously as manager of the year in the Russian Premier League. His team, Spartak Moscow, are actually tied for first, or technically in third place, but they're tied in points in the league. I mean, he's using a 3-5-2. He's doing really well over there. I mean, good for him. I mean,
when you said he was playing well, I'm like, did he just sub himself on?
Yeah, he might have. He's young enough.
Action up in Russia.
He's young enough. He's younger than some of his players. So,
yeah, no, we love to see it. I mean, listen, we loved Tedesco. We thought it was the right decision for him to leave probably when he did, based on how things were going. You had to try to change something and fix the issue before the club got too close to that relegation zone. But obviously, somebody whose passion and commitment was never in question, and somebody who I think will be a fan favorite amongst a lot of supporters for a long time, regardless of how things ultimately played out with his tenure. So happy to see him having success elsewhere.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. So, yeah, it's been a long episode. A lot to talk about. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in the game, but a lot to talk about in the last week. So we had to get it all out, unfortunately. So
Holiday special.
Holiday special. That's right. Absolutely. So anyway, next game against Leverkusen. So we'll be back after that game. Jack, yeah, for all those who came in and joined us on the podcast tonight, thank you very much. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you sign up for the Schalke US newsletter. Simply just put your email in and you'll get them monthly. So make sure you do that. And then, keep tuning in each week. We'll bring you the latest from the club. We want to thank the Schalke and all our followers for providing us tidbits in our podcast tonight. If there are any topics you would like us to discuss or any other guests you want us to bring, we had Daniel McDermott. Shout out to him tonight. Please let us know at SchalkeMerica. So again, follow Daniel McDermott. We're going to tweet his handle out and his tactics blog. So make sure you go and follow that. Give it a check out, Jack. Where can our followers find you on social media?
At JM Mangan, JMMangan on Twitter.
All right. As always, you can follow me at R_KHARMAN. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave comments here on our YouTube page as well. We're trying to put up some more videos as the weeks progress. So until the next podcast comes, my friends, stay ready, and we'll be with you soon. Tschüss.